Hello again, students. This is continuation of cause and effect from part one. So if you're doing part two right now, you need to listen to part one first. Alrighty, then part two, this is covering the comprehension anthology that we worked on that was given as work for Friday, covering all the comprehension questions. Okay, so if you're on this right now and you didn't listen to one, you need to listen to part one first. Hello, students. I wanted to go over the comprehension questions that I had given you for Friday, the 24th, the Great Fire. Many of you chose to complete the work. It was regular classwork, and then some of you did not complete it. As I mentioned before, I can only do what I can do to try to teach you these skills and help have you these and hopefully use these skills as you're moving on into the 7th grade. Anyhow, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and go over and cover some of these questions. So I gave you the page numbers. The first question was, on page 43, the author uses a proverb. And I explained in parentheses what a proverb was. And it basically it means stating a general truth or piece of advice. So, quote, it says, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. Is fitting for this passage. What do you think it means, and why did the author use it? Well, the proverb means that it's easier to prevent a problem than to fix things after the damage has happened or after the damage is done. So the author included that because he wanted to show how James Hildreth decided to help prevent the fire. And he decided to help prevent the fire from spreading by blowing up empty houses that were around it. Yes, there you go. So that would answer that question and help you understand an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. Okay, students, on this question on page 444, they were cause and effects. So what caused Claire to retreat to the construction site? What was the cause? Well, the cause of that was the wind blew, burning hot embers down on Claire. That was the cause of her retreating to the construction site. What was the effect of that? So what was the effect of the cause? The effect of the cause was she went back to the construction site where it wasn't so hot. She went back to the construction site where it wasn't so hot. And that is your cause and effect. Okay, here's the next one. Where do you think Claire hid to stay safe? Where do you think she hid to stay safe? The cause? Well, she hid behind bricks at the site. What was the effect of her hiding behind those bricks to stay safe? What was the effect? The bricks kept the fire from reaching her. That was the effect. The cause is she ran to hide behind the bricks at the site to stay safe. The effect of her doing that was they kept the fire from reaching her. Okay, students, now on page 444 again, what context clues helps you figure out the meaning of cacophony? Cacophony. Well, it's a harsh mix of sounds is the definition for cacophony. So when you look at it, it says, it has reasonably been assumed that she was surrounded by a frightening cacophony of sounds. This was on page 444. Wood igniting and burning wildly, the glass of windows exploding, stairways and ceilings collapsing. Cacophony is a harsh mix of sounds, and those were the context clues that basically helped us figure out what cacophony could have meant or does mean. Okay, let's talk about the next question. On page 446, was Claire able to see the man who spoke to her in an alleyway? And you were supposed to find text evidence to find out, was Claire able to see the man who spoke to her in the alleyway? No. Claire says that a voice called back to her through the smoke, which suggested that she could only hear him and not see him because the smoke was too thick. So as I'm reading the second paragraph in that passage, it says, I called for help again and again, and at last a voice called back to me through the smoke. He told me to stand away from there, as a wall of the building might fall on me, and that was all. So she could not see the voice, she only heard the voice. Okay, so we're looking for the cause of why Hildreth was not able to first bring down the structures he needed for the fire breaks. Why? What was the cause? Well, the cause was that he was using the wrong amount of powder. He was using the wrong amount of powder. And the effect of that was, what was the effect of that cause of him using the incorrect amount of powder? Is he was unable to bring down the structures to make fire breaks. He was unable to bring down the structures to make the fire breaks. And that was a cause and effect. On page 449, there was a large caption which asked you to identify a primary source. To identify a primary source. And as I mentioned, remember, primary sources are things that have headlines, they're news worthy, they are magazines or articles, dated information. So in this case, the primary source was the Chicago Evening Journal. On this page, it was big, it was bold, you couldn't miss it. And it said the great calamity of the age. And it talks about Chicago in ashes. So that was on page 449. That was a primary source. And in there it says, what information do the headlines reveal about the fire? Well, what they revealed was damage was in the hundreds of millions of dollars. Fire had destroyed the south, the north, and parts of the west divisions of the city. And many important public buildings had been destroyed. That was the information that you would have been able to find in that primary source on page 449. And why do you think only one-page edition was issued to describe this major event? Well, if you would have read on, or you would have listened, it would have explained to you that one of the headlines states that many newspaper offices had been swept away, which meant this was the only one available. And they probably suffered a loss of equipment, and people were too busy fighting the fire to think about printing more than one page. And that is why there was only one-page edition that was issued to describe this major event. Okay, let's look at number 9, students. Number 9 asks on page 451, it asks a question, who thought they were having a horrible dream? Well, Mrs. Fear thought she was having a horrible dream. She thought her children were dead. And during this horrible dream, it was, why was she agitated by the wagging of the frightening children? She thought they were dead, and the effect of that is she became so agitated that she saw a wagon of frightened children. And it reminded her of her children being dead. So when we ask on number 10, why was Mrs. Fear agitated by the wagging of frightening children? Because that reminded her of her children who she thought were dead. That is why. So that is answering those two questions there. Number 11 on page 456 asks, why do you think Julia Lemon's father was so reluctant to leave the house when he knew about the fire? So reluctant means that he didn't want to leave. So Julia Lemos's father was so reluctant to leave the house when he knew about the fire because he knew the students may say that Julia's father might have thought he knew better than Julia did about how the fire would move, how it would continue to destroy things. Julia did know about how the fire would move. she did. And they may have also said that because his wife was ill, he didn't want to disrupt her, or because he was elderly, he was too tired or weak to pack up and go. So this may be why he was reluctant. Those were just some of the reasons why he could have been so reluctant to leave the house when the fire was moving about. Okay, so um, Julia's father may not have known that Julia knew about the fire and how it would move. Also, again, maybe because his wife was ill, he didn't want to disrupt her. Maybe because he was old and elderly, or maybe he was just too tired to pack up and he was weak. Those would have been some of the reasons why he didn't leave. So on question number 12, we wanted to know what was the author's purpose for including the reason that Julia Lemos left her house. Why was it important for the author to put that in there? It was important because of the question about the children being trapped in the house. Lemos was jolted into action, saving her entire family. That's why it was important for the author to put that in there. It's the character's actions, and it shows the type of character that Julia was. So lastly, the question was very simple, is what city did the fire take place in, and what day and year? Well, that actually, students, was right at the beginning of your story. For those of you who recall, it was the great what? It was the Great Fire, Sunday, October 8th, 1871, in Chicago, Illinois. I hope that going over these comprehension questions, students, help you understand the purpose for rereading and understanding the cause and effect in narrative nonfiction anthologies, stories. It's how we learn about historical events and how the information is given to us, and how the author explains the specific events in sequential order. If you notice that each event attached onto the previous event, it's a cause and effect. Okay, students, so I hope that answered some of your questions for those students who did complete this assignment, and I appreciate the efforts from all of you who worked on this on Friday. We're going to continue with this type of work this week with our story called Blown Away.